everybody. Today we are talking about Serbia. They just have elections and some protest about the results. There are also some geopolitical stakes there. Our guest tonight will tell us more about it. We have Aleksandar Novakovic. It's a member of social movement Flame. It's a political movement in Serbia. And he's also a writer, musician, and historian. Welcome, Aleksandar.
Thank you, Platon. I'm very pleased to see you and to see or to hear from our viewers. So yes, thank you.
We also have been members in DiEM25, so we go a bit back with our common past. So we can call ourselves leftist, I think, still, right?
Yes, I have always, not always, but since my early 20s, I have always been the leftist, and I remained the leftist. So basically, that's it.
So let's get into the subject. What happened with the elections in Serbia? Why people protested? If you can start, I mean, what I understood about it, it all started with vote shooting in school, and from there started the protest movement from that shooting before the elections.
Well, basically, if you want to talk about these elections, it is a long history and it is a traumatic history. Basically, what happened was this: back in the May 2023, there were shootings in one primary school in Belgrade, and later on in town municipality of Mladenovac, which is a big town near Belgrade, and Mladenovac is part of Belgrade municipality also. It is just like one of counties, for example. So what happened was that, many children and young people were killed in those two mass shootings. It was like Columbine times two, basically. So it was very, very, very hard situation for a small nation of 6.5 million people that has never seen actually such an atrocity, such an atrocity in our history. Basically, it was a massive blow. It was a shock.
But what was the reasoning for it?
Well, basically, I'm not psychologist, I'm not psychiatrist. I know that two persons who were basically mentally unstable took their weapons. It was a teenager who killed his friends from his school. Basically, he just came in and started shooting children, and the guard that was guarding the school, he was also shot, and that child was always surrounded with weapons, and his father took him to, what do you call it, like on the sites where people train to shoot at stuff. But basically, like that child had a gun in his hands long before he committed those atrocious crimes. And then it was a young man in Mladenovac who heard about this, and I presume that he was triggered by horrible crimes that this child committed, and he did it again in Mladenovac a few days later. So basically, it was like pandemics of violence, so to say, in my country. And the government and all the people around it acted in most inappropriate way for the situation. For example, they didn't postpone football matches because in my country, if something like this happens, there are 3 days of complete sorrow. Like there is no joyful music playing on the radio. There are no funny shows on TV, and definitely there are no football matches, but football match needed to be played, and they acted like nothing happened. But people started asking questions like, why is the government acting this way? Why are we not safe the way we were before? Uh, they started asking about the responsibility of the people who run the police and the security services and stuff like that. And the government of Aleksandar Vučić didn't respond in a civilized manner. They ignored everything that was said, and later, and even published some data about the families of persons that committed the atrocious crimes, even though it is forbidden by our laws. So basically, they broke laws of their own country for dozens of times during these days of mourning and sorrow for our nation, and the result was a complete revolt against the not only Department of Police, but the government itself, and the people went to streets and demanded certain things. Uh, One of the things that people demanded was a resignation of Minister of Internal Affairs, basically Minister of Police, resignation of Minister of State Security. Basically, it is BIA in my country. It is like CIA or FBI in USA. So I'm just making a parallel. And resignation of Minister of Education, and of course they demanded, the resignation. They demanded that all the TV shows and radio shows that promote the violence should be restricted in media, and response was non-existent, not a civil response. So the citizens started organizing themselves, and it was known as a movement, as a demonstration, as a protest, known as Serbia protiv nasilja, or Serbia against the violence. And it mobilized huge numbers of people in all major cities in Serbia, including the capital city, Belgrade, with over 100,000 estimated participants in the demonstrations in the month of May.
So this protest, which was actually against a criminal case, which I understand, later on in the elections turned into a political movement, right?
Yeah, but the basic thing that we need to understand is this: that it started as a protest against the violence in our country, as against the atmosphere in the society that's creating criminality and serial murders. Let me remind you that my country has one of the highest levels of the criminal generally in the Europe. And let me remind you that, of course, the high echelons of the Vučić regime are connected with the organized crime. So basically, we have atmosphere of crime and of destruction on every corner, and there are many strange affairs that were happening during the Vučić rule, many of them ending with violence and murder and torture and stealing of people's property. So basically, what happened was this: when these protests started, people realized more than ever that the whole system of the country was corrupted. The whole system. So three branches of authority didn't exist no more. So you talk about, of course, judicial. You talk about, we can talk about the judicial, about the, of course, lawmakers, and we can talk about, of course, forces of security. So basically, you don't have decent public judges, you don't have decent politicians, decent parliament to vote the rules you work on, and you don't have a decent police force. So basically, you need to reform all of this. So it was like a public outcry after that, and it evolved into political movement later on, but it had some strange quirks and turns during the way, and it is a very, very, very long story. But to cut long story short, what happened actually was you had 100,000 citizens that were sick of Vučić regime and the manipulations and the violence. But 6 months later, you have just 1,000 people on the streets of Belgrade, and they are totally disappointed. And the opposition parties took the lead in the Serbia Against Violence movement, and they ran on the elections that were rigged completely and utterly, and they, of course, lost. And you have another demonstrations, and people are disappointed, and they are asking why this happened. You know, we were bamboozled by opposition parties who don't have any power and intelligence to make the right moves and fight against the Vučić regime, basically. So what we have today now is basically we know that the elections are rigged, but we opposition asked us to wait up until 10th of January, when they will hopefully continue the protests. So it is bizarre situation completely.
Yeah, so this were parliamentary elections.
These elections, what happened was, and it is one of the huge things, because when these protests started, no one asked for parliamentary elections. They wanted responsible people to quit. Ministers, certain people in the government, certain TV programs to be banned and stuff like that. So it was not like we are going to overthrow the Vučić. But what happened was this. Basically, it doesn't mean that they didn't want to, but these were the demands. When the opposition took the lead in Serbia Against Violence, suddenly the main idea was, let's forget about all those demands of Serbia Against Violence. Let's focus on, let's try with elections. Let's fight for elections. And these elections were given to opposition as a serpent's egg, because basically election committee that needed to supervise the elections in our country was controlled and discontrolled by the ruling party. The people who are basically running the state-controlled media are also running state-controlled media, and there was no, there was no control from the opposition towards the state-controlled media. And there was also no check of the voting lists of the people. So basically, many people that are not in Serbia, who are dead, deceased, not living here, or never even lived here, are on the voting lists. No one checked that. They just wanted the elections. You know, they were just running for elections, running like hell, and forgot all the demands they had before. They said, if we win these elections, we will overthrow the Vučić. And basically it was the wrong tactics, because everyone knew that they cannot win the rigged elections. And what happened was that the elections were rigged, and these elections were for Parliament of Republic of Serbia, Parliament of Autonomous Region of Vojvodina on the north of the country, and the local municipal parliaments from capital city Belgrade onwards. So basically, in many major cities, there were local elections also for municipal parliaments. So you had three kinds of elections. And the problem was and is that, basically they were rigged on all levels. Now here comes the Serbian opposition after December the 17th. They claim the elections were rigged. Hell yes, they were rigged, and you knew that they will be rigged, and you went to the elections, and you expected to win the power in the Belgrade. But the elections were also rigged in the Belgrade, of course. And it was done in many different ways. I can explain to you later on, like the way the Vučić and his team manipulated the elections. But basically, what happened was this: after the elections, opposition said, "Well, maybe some of in some parts of country, we shall not say that the elections were rigged, but maybe only in Belgrade." Because if we win in Belgrade, Belgrade will become our stronghold. And what happened was, you cannot be halfway pregnant. You can have a baby or not have a baby. So if the elections are rigged, they are rigged all over the country, nationwide, or they are not rigged. And they were rigged massively. But the opposition wanted just small, tiny piece of cake, and they basically ended up with almost nothing.
Yeah, let's explain a bit. I mean, we understood this separation of corruption, which is I think there is corruption everywhere. I don't think Serbia is a special case for it.
No, I don't think. I don't think.
But this how can I call this mantra with corruption have been used in many countries as a way to um, how say to put on second place the political problems. I mean, you don't have the separation anymore between left, right, between privatization and the state politics or whatever. You have just corruption, and somebody's against, somebody's everybody's for fighting anti-corruption. So what were the sides? I mean, the opposition. How is it political? Is it on the right? Is it on the left? What were their political stakes? I mean, what they wanted to bring new in Serbia politics, except what you said about corruption. What was
Well,
this difference between Vučić party and the opposition?
no. Okay. First things first. Well, basically, the main difference, you need to understand that the main difference. Of course, someone would say that I'm biased. Of course, I'm biased. I'm leftist. Of course, I'm biased. I am biased. So basically, what happened was this: the main difference between Vučić party, which is created just for one reason, to rip off this country of all its essential natural goods and to destroy it utterly and put everything in their pockets and give jobs to their cronies. The main difference between that party and the opposition is this: that if opposition wins, we'll have a few more free media, sort to speak, maybe more law-abiding judges here and there, just like courts will work on better terms, but basically the essence of social conflicts in my country, the essence of social struggle in my country, the essence of the capitalism and exploitation in my country will remain the same. And the opposition itself is a strange kind of mishmash between centrists, center-right, social democrats, who are pretty weak actually, but social democrats nonetheless. But of course, it is a strange mishmash of conflicted interests and conflicted parties. And how will they create coalition one day if they gain the power? I don't know. It seems kind of strange. But first things first, from the leftist point of view, it is better to get rid of Vučić and then get rid of them than the other way around. So basically, of course, we had, as social movement Flame, we had a list of simple, well, I should say, suggestions, what should be done. And one of our main suggestions was this: do not participate in rigged elections. First, you need to win the right terms for elections and then go to elections, not to go on rigged elections knowing they are rigged and then later on say, look, they are rigged. Everyone knows they are rigged. So you need to fight for good terms of elections first. And the problem is that if you want to have good elections anyway, I need to be blunt. You need to get rid of Vucic first. How? Not, of course, in a bloody coup or something that happened in Romania like 30 years ago, but to do this, total civil disobedience, meaning total strike on national level. If we achieve this, then he will be overthrown within a week or two, and then we will have a provisional government, and then we will have more or less fair elections. So, in some kind of peaceful civil revolution, we will overthrow the dictator. If we want to win his game, we should not play his game. And the opposition is all the way playing his game. And he's got them where he wants them. Actually, that's the way he does it. And of course, there is another problem because they accepted the rules of the game and they are losing. And now are they confused? Why are we losing? Maybe because you accepted the rules of the game that has one simple rule, actually. Like in Las Vegas, the house always wins.
Yes. Well, maybe first of all, I suppose somebody is voting with Vucic. He's not. He's not without any voters. So maybe he doesn't have a majority, but there are people who are supporting him, I imagine.
Yeah,
He
yeah,
might
yeah,
steal some votes, but he still have some. So when elections are rigged, it's very difficult to say exactly where the majority is, if he's on one side or the other. But possibly one of the reason for this disaster, let's say, for the left, is because, as you said, there is no real difference on social and political program between opposition and power. So
yeah.
when you don't have a promise of the left, a radical left, to bring something for the people, it's hard to make a difference. But I want to ask you something else. Isn't also a geopolitical stake in this conflict? Because when the protests started after elections, there were a lot of accusations of colored revolution, and we know that the actual president, is supporting Russia, and it's not very well seen by the Western powers, and it's a very hot conflict. I mean, it's not like
Yeah.
it can be ignored. Isn't this geopolitical stake also? What was the opposition positioning itself? Was it on the same foreign politics, or was different in their view?
Well, first things first. I shall remind you of one interview that Julian Assange had like 6 or 7 years ago, and his words were sort of a prophecy. I don't say that Julian Assange is a prophet, but I say that he is a very wise man who saw some things that are coming our way. Uh, God knows if he's still alive and what will happen to him. It seems like the world has forgotten about him, and that's another sad news. But he said this. He said that look at Ukraine and at Serbia because the future will happen over there first. The future comes first to Serbia and to Ukraine. So, and he was right, totally right. What happened was this actually. When you look at my country, and colored revolutions and stuff like that. I think that you don't need to make those comparisons because let's be honest. Um okay, Ukrainians and us are Slavs, and that's about it. You know, everything else is very different in Serbia and Ukraine. I can explain one simple thing. If you take a look at the geographical map, you will see that Serbia has no connection, physical connection with Russia whatsoever. We are basically surrounded with NATO members or countries that tend to become members of NATO alliance. That's number one. So basically, we cannot fight against the NATO alliance, and we are surrounded by it. Number two, there is a big difference because it is not all black and white in my country. For example, on one hand, you have you have about 300,000 Russians living in Serbia at the moment. They are refugees that ran away from Putin. So basically, they went to Georgia in large numbers, and they went in large numbers to Serbia. So it is like open country for them in a way, but in a way, of course, it isn't. Vucic is not just the pawn of Kremlin. The fun fact about Vucic is that he is pawn of everyone who offers him anything. He would sell his mother to Chinese and his brother to Americans and his wife to Americans if he needed to sell them. Basically, he is playing the game with both powers. He's playing for both teams. Okay, this that didn't sound politically correct, but anyway, I want to say that basically, yeah, when we discovered that the elections were rigged, something strange happened. Russians said that there is no way that we'll have another Maidan in Belgrade, and Americans said that actually the elections were quite fine. They congratulated Vucic for his big victory. So you see, the Russians and Americans are agreeing on something. And the basic thing that they agree upon is this: we will exploit the Serbia because we have an useful idiot ruling this country. As simple as that. So basically, it is like my country is one big cake, and the one slice goes to Russia, one slice goes to Germany, one bloody slice goes to Americans and whoever. So basically, my country is up for grabs thanks to Vucic.
Yeah, it's said on the opposition, you didn't answer. The opposition, how is positioning? I mean, how is different from Vucic?
Well,
In
basically, geopolitically speaking,
yes, yes, geopolitical. I mean,
geopolitically, well, basically, the main difference is that the opposition is more like pro-European Union. We have seen, for example, EU flags on certain protests against the government, and they are more tending to rely on the help from social democratic center or even conservative parties from Western Europe. So basically, the European is mostly pro. The opposition is mostly pro-Western European, pro-EU, although one part of the opposition is Eurosceptical and another part is basically against the EU, and people who are against the EU are basically right-winged or okay, we have also extreme right-winged parties, and they're of course leaning towards Moscow.
yes. Thank you, Alexander.
Yeah, yeah. Is that all?
Well, yeah,
Okay. Yeah.
it's quite and
I can say something to wrap this up. Basically, what I think that needs to be done, and what will be the future of this. If you need to know, I can give you few
please,
minutes.
please
Yeah,
tell me.
basically, what I think is that opposition is planning to take the part in parliaments. So they will obviously they will take part in they will participate, they will partake in fake parliaments on all levels, on municipal level, on national level, and on of course autonomous region of Vojvodina level. But what will happen after that is basically everyone who goes to the parliament that is based upon the rigged elections is in a way collaborating with the tyrannical regime of Aleksandar Vučić, which has imprisoned dozens of people in my country, and some of those people are still imprisoned and are persecuted, and they are blackmailed to sign the most atrocious documents, such as you, if you want to leave the jail and you were captured during the demonstrations, you need to sign that you were breaking the constitution of your own country. And you are out on parole and you can be arrested for anything. So basically, you are a blackmailed man. So what will happen was this, it will be this. We will finally distill the real opposition from the fake opposition. And what will happen is if you want to overthrow the Vučić, you need to have wide popular anti-Vučić front with many people of different political views taking part in this, leftists and centrists mostly, and they will not be from any of these parties that will go to the parliament. So basically, we need to create our opposition from the scratch, and we need to create the Serbian left from the scratch. It is a big task, it is a big temptation, but I think there are many people in my country that are up to it and that can look at the face of the challenge in the eye. So basically, that's it.
Yeah, I remember it was quite a long time attempt since DM25 was running elections in Serbia, I don't know, some 3-4 years ago. I think they ran for Belgrade, was a very nice campaign, interesting, with some ducks, I remember, some yellow ducks they put on.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
it is
basically,
quite a long
you know what
history
happened?
of attempts of the left. What happened with DM25 in Serbia? Are they are still running in elections? Where are they?
Yeah, well, basically, what happened? DiEM25 was never running in elections in Serbia. Number one. Number two, DiEM25 in Belgrade supported the endeavor of "Don't Let the Belgrade Drown" movement that was running for municipal elections back in 2018. So we were supporting them. We were not members of that particular movement. That particular movement has today members of local municipalities and has, of course, their own MPs. But they also made a compromise with the Vučić regime, and they will also join these rigged parliaments. And this is abhorring. And for the DiEM25, I left DiEM25 like 3 years ago. So, or no, excuse me, 4 years ago. So I'm not aware of what is happening with DM Belgrade at this very moment. But I think that we need new international leftist organization. DiEM25 did not fulfill its task. It completely, utterly failed, let's face it. And of course, we need to rewind the movie, rewind the film, and to see where are the mistakes, and not to repeat them again. And that the very same goes for Serbia, because we had one party of radical left that almost disbanded 2 years ago. So it was created, but it disbanded. And we need to learn from those mistakes and try to make something better again. And of course, the people of the social movement Flame will try to do their best. So that's it.
Thank you, Alexander, and Merry Christmas. It's Christmas
Yeah,
tomorrow in Serbia.
yeah. Thank
You'll
you very much.
celebrate twice.
Yeah, and Merry Christmas to you. I know I'm very late to say to you.
Yeah, no, but I'll
Merry.
celebrate too. Since you told me it's Christmas, I can miss it again.
Yeah, of
Thank
course.
you. Thank you,
Merry Christmas and
everybody.
see ya. Bye bye. All the best. Ciao.